Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Your organisation runs training courses for your staff and customers. Only problem is it's time-consuming, inconvenient and costly. Take a leaf out of our book. The School of Hard Knock Knocks uses the online training platform by YZ, and our team and customers love it. It's simple to use, supports every media format, audio, video, text, and looks great on desktops, tablets and mobiles. And for a limited time, quote SHKK when you arrange a demo and get 10% off your first year's plan. YZ helps us deliver comedy courses around the world. Imagine what it could do for your organisation. YZ, that's WYZED.com. YZ, online learning made simple.
You're listening to the School of Hard Knock Knocks podcast with me, Steve Davis.
Ladies and gentlemen, your next comedian.
Shouldn't drink on an empty head, you know that, don't you?
That is the shittiest heckle I have ever heard in my life.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
What's a bucket list?
You have dangerously underprepared yourself for the shit that is about to get real.
By dying, Prince Phillip helped sell out comedian Lewis Spears' last week of his Melbourne International Comedy Festival show. Morbid, yes, but also totally on brand and totally orchestrated. Yes, mainstream media, like the Daily Mail, who called Spears a monster, was played by this true professional. In this School of Hard Knock Knocks podcast interview, host Steve Davis delves deep into the business mind behind the Spears brand, finds out what it takes to build a following of over 500,000 subscribers, why every show finishes with a debrief and not a beer, and how ultimately to succeed in stand-up comedy today, it takes a team effort. If you're in the comedy scene and know someone who is incredible at stand-up but just not doing very well, then this is the podcast interview for you. I mean them. Comedian Lewis Spears succinctly puts the business into show business. And if you enjoy this interview, then meet the man in person at the Rubber Chicken in South Melbourne this June 18. Lewis Spears is joined by comedians Matt O'Neill and the legendary Chris Wainhouse for the Dark Comedy Special. Tickets are on sale now, so visit www.therubberchicken.com.au. And now, here's the hilariously eloquent Lewis Spears.
Lewis Spears, welcome to the School of Hard Knock Knocks podcast.
Happy to be here, Steve. Thanks for having me.
There are a number of things I want to ask you on behalf of budding comedians listening into this podcast, and I want to start with the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. Earlier this year, you basically sold out most of your shows. You were doing them at the Rubber Chicken. Tell me, was that the biggest festival you've done to date?
Oh, yeah, by far. It was more than twice as big as the last festival that I did. I've been pretty successful at my festival runs, but this one kind of blew it out of the water in terms of, turnout. So it was a great run.
What do you think was behind that? Did you notice anything different in the water in Melbourne, or was there just, can you put your finger on it? Is it just you've built your reputation, or what's going on there?
I think there's an element of it was after lockdown, people just wanted to see anything. I think that definitely played a hand in things. But to be honest, I think it's just mostly the work that I've put in online and growing my audience and building up, like a big fan base and an audience that wants to see my stand-up. That's really what it comes down to, I think. Advertising or saying, come and see me, that works to an extent, but entertaining people every single day for years and years online, you can't beat that. And that's what I think I've managed to do really well, is just always be there. You open up my phone, I'm trying to make you laugh.
And I've watched some of those videos. By the way, you don't try to stick to any 2-minute limit or anything. Some of those are quite intense. And I found I was actually in the middle of a really busy day and I just couldn't stop watching it. I just wanted to know, it was particularly when you went to a meeting of greenies or was something, and it was just like watching a car. I just had to watch the whole thing all the way through. So I can understand that builds the sense of, hey, I can see this guy's going to be on tonight. Let's go and see him.
That's kind of what it's about. Like, you know, it comes down to, like, I always try and step out of, you know, being a comedian and try and put myself in like a fan's view, because I am a fan, and that's how I started. Like, we all started as fans, and I always think, like, why do I like Bill Burr? Like, why do I like Jim Jeffries? And it comes down to Bill Burr does a podcast every week, and I listen to that, and I feel like I'm his friend. You know, it's like, yes, he's incredible at stand-up, but at the end of the day, I want to see him because he's been entertaining me every week for an entire year. So I know that as soon as those tickets go on sale in my city, I'm going to get them because, you know, that's all he talks about and that's what I want to see.
Is that the law of reciprocity at work there? He leads by giving, and so you feel like you owe him, and it's no biggie to put down $20 or $40 at the door and go and pay your dues, I suppose.
Well, yeah, I think it is. Like, I don't think this. I think that's just how things have changed. Like, everything is free now. Music is free. You know, stand-up clips are free now. Like, you can watch like, you pay for Netflix, but it doesn't feel like it because it's so cheap compared to how often you use it. Yeah. So it's more so about connect rather than like coming up with a show and then 2 weeks before tickets go on sale, you start marketing for the first time going, I've got the best show ever and you should see me. You need to prove that you have that 8 months before you even announce the show by proving yourself to these people in a format they can understand, which is free, regular content that turns them into a fan. And that's how you get them in the door. And I think that's what I've done. You know, I've been doing it since 2012 and it's worked really well for me so far. So.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people with Adelaide Fringe background, Melbourne Comedy Festival background, nodding their head at that and going, yeah, because I'm with those people. I've been those people where during the run you're just scrambling to get bums on seats. But if you put the hard yards in a measured way over time, you've got this sense of momentum that builds up and a following that's easier to steer in your direction.
Well, yeah, that's it. If you start marketing your shows for the first time when you put them on sale, you're a year late. That's what I think. I'm not saying that, you know, my content is every time I release a video, I'm going, come and see me live. I don't even talk about my shows, but the point is every little bit that I put online is an advertisement for me and me being funny, and the videos are just part of it.
So on that, I mean, looking at the numbers, it's probably bigger than it is now, but it was about 584,000 subscribers, I believe, you've got online. Some of your videos hit 1, 2 million, 13 million views. We've got the sense of why you do it, but is there some strategic nugget or compass point that you use when you're deciding to do a video that gives you some guidelines to work within, or is it purely throw as many things out there as possible and some of them will stick?
Well, that is how you start, I think, is you just do whatever you can do and do whatever you genuinely think is funny and just try as many things as possible until you find what sticks. That's absolutely how it starts, because, you know, what works... I have some best practices, but what works for me may not necessarily work for someone who's different to me, because it all comes down to people need to like you. So if you're not being genuine, as in you're not creating content that you genuinely like, it won't work. Like, if I was to start doing videos about sport, it would fail abysmally because I don't give a fuck about sport, you know? And that's the same way where, like, if someone doesn't really like sketch comedy, but they see a few people doing it really well online, they're like, oh, I hate this shit, but I'll give it a go because it's what works. That will only work if you're the type of person who genuinely enjoys liking, creating and writing sketch stuff. So the number one thing that I've learned from making the mistake of trying to just do what other people are doing is realizing, it's only going to work if I actually like it, because otherwise I might be able to do one good piece of content that's not really what I like, but I definitely couldn't do it again. And it's all about consistency. So you need to be creating stuff that you genuinely like and genuinely think that is funny, and then apply the best practices to that content, I think.
That's the second time you've used the term best practices, and I happen to have some insider information from the rubber chicken, I'll name him, Maury Morgan. Okay? We all know Maury.
Yeah.
He told me that after every show you do, you actually do a debrief with your team, which, I haven't been in the comedy circles for very long. I think it's about 3 years. But even in that 3 years, I've noticed a shift. There are people who float to the top who build out the professional back end of what they're doing. So what's driven you to do that?
Well, I take the craft super seriously. So, a lot of people will focus on my videos and that makes sense because that's what most people see. Obviously, I can perform to maybe 1,000 people in a room, and that's an incredible experience. But you put that next to the amount of views that I'm getting, it's minuscule. So a lot of people will see my videos and go, "Oh, that's the main thing." That's not the main thing. That's just what gets seen the most. What I really care about the most and put the most effort into making good and making funny and doing well is the stand-up. I truly view myself as a proper stand-up comedian. I just also have this online audience. So those me having a team and me talking about my show after my show is really important to me, because I have an audience that is expecting a level of quality because they know they think my videos are funny. My stand-up needs to be much better than that, because you hear it all the time. He's not as good live, said about other acts that maybe don't do that due diligence. People love saying, yeah, his videos are better. And that's kind of been something that I've managed to avoid, because I put the most amount of effort into my actual performance and my skill on stage. I want to be the guy that people go, man, his videos are good, but fuck, he's so much better on stage. And that's what I have managed to achieve. And I think it's building out the team comes down to looking at this shit as what it is, which is a business. It's I'm sure everybody knows, if you're in the comedy scene, everyone knows someone who is just so fucking incredible at stand-up, but they're just not doing very well. And it's because, maybe they're not looking at this shit like a business, which is what it is. And some people think that's a dirty word, but it's the reality of it. You have a product, which is your skill, and that's what people are buying. You need to figure out how to market it. You need to figure out how to improve that product. You need to figure out how to build a business around what you're selling, which at the end of the day, yes, is you and is an art, but doesn't matter how good you are at your art, if no one's there to see it, how good is it? So that's kind of what I look at it, and that's why I surround myself with a team of people that I trust to help me get better and help me put it out there.
On the team front, you've got a friend, Keelan. He films your shows.
Yes.
Does loads of editing. Is the Lewis Spears brand a team effort? I think we know the answer to that. So, therefore, how big is this team? What is this team we're talking about? And just as a footnote, I heard Jim Jeffries interviewed a while ago. He talks about a little layer of stress he has, that it's not just him going out. He is now supporting a team of people who rely on him to be successful, for them to earn their daily bread. And so, as if this is a team effort and you're building a team, that's an extra responsibility on top of, making people laugh.
Yes, Lewis Spears is absolutely a team. Often younger comics will be like, man, how can I do that? And I'd be very clear, you by yourself cannot put out as much content as I do. I'm not special. I'm not some magical beast who just works like so much harder than the average online creator. I have a team, and doing this amount of content online would be impossible without that. I obviously started off solo, and I've trained up every single member of my team, but it's ultimately to just replace parts of the job that I was doing that were stopping me from being able to just spend more time creating and improving and writing. And it's absolutely a massive team effort. So Keelan is kind of at the head of my team. I kind of look at him. He just started out as a guy that used to edit my videos. Mm-hmm. I would shoot them, and then he would just edit them. And then I taught him how to edit, and then I taught him how to film. And then we started going, well, why don't we film the shows? Because every show, crowd work happens that will never happen again. Obviously, I can't really release my material because if I put it out online, it's not going to work as well when I actually perform it because people have heard it.
Yeah, the crowd work bits are there, the gems, aren't they, that you can seize on?
Yes. Yeah, exactly, because they will never happen again. So if they go well, you'll never feel bad about putting them out because every comedian has their killer bit that they could pull out in any scenario at the end of a set and fucking crush. But if you put that out online, that's awesome if the clip goes well. But you got to keep a little bit of magic for the people that are at home. You don't want to put your best bits out online and then people buy a ticket and they see the stuff that's not as good as that. It doesn't really make sense. Yeah. So having a team's really important. And my team it's getting big. It started off small. It started off as just me, but it's getting quite big. I have Keelan, who is kind of in charge of a second editor who edits. So Keelan will make the big main videos and edit the stand-up and film the stand-up, like the really important stuff that goes on my main channel that I work on really closely with him together. And then we have a second guy who's just part-time that will cut those bigger pieces of content down into smaller social clips for TikTok and Instagram stories and stuff like that, and kind of disseminate those bigger pieces of content into several smaller bits for other social platforms that will encourage people to then watch the bigger pieces, which encourages people to then come and see me live. So I kind of view what I do online as a media company where I am the TV show, and then I have a team that produces that content and then advertises it across social media.
That suggests to me that your head is raised towards the horizon. You're plotting forward into the future, not just going from gig to gig. Is that fair?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I want to do what Jim Jeffries did, but using the internet to get there. That's what I want to do. And I think that I'm on my way. Like, I've always kind of thought years, and sometimes my head is decades into the future, and I need to go, hang on, what the fuck are you having for breakfast?
Now, there is something about you that's mysterious, Lewis. You do anything to make your gigs fantastic. How did you imagine, or arrange rather, for Prince Phillip to die midway through one of your sets and to have one of your audience members report this to you from their phone? Now that is Machiavelli, take a back seat. Here is Lewis Spears. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so a lot of people think that maybe that was there were plans or that was planned. It wasn't. I mean, obviously, I did send a hitman to kill Prince Phillip. That much is obvious.
Yeah, obvious.
So his death was orchestrated by me, of course. But how that happened is that the Prince Phillip material that you see online, I was actually performing those jokes every single night. It was a regular part of my set. And it's my favorite part of the show, really, where I would just lay into him for just, 5-7 minutes. And I've been doing it every single night. And people think that I found out that he died and then just wrote in half an hour, 5 minutes of material that just fucking killed. Absolutely. That's impossible. right? I would be the best comedian in the world if I did that. It was material that was working. What you see online is it's probably about 30% improvised, because I do find out that he dies in real time in the video, because I think how it happened was going through with my team the timeline of it. My show started, and then my opening act got on, and he would have died during the opening act set, and then I got on. So people would have had time to check their phones or look at texts during that little changeover period. So then I get on, and then 20 minutes into my show, I start doing the Prince Phillip bit. So on the night, by the time I started my Prince Phillip gear, he'd probably been dead for about half an hour. So you can kind of see the audience waiting, going, hang on, is he talking about this because he knows he's dead? Or is this part of if you watch them, you'll see people who know. Yeah. Most of them don't, but a few people go, well, hang on, I know he's dead. Does Lewis know? And they think that maybe I know. And that's why people started yelling out, he's dead. Like at the start of the clip, if you listen to it, a woman about 30 seconds in straight away yells out, he died today. And I didn't hear her. And that's when people started just yelling it out, going, hey, dude, he's dead. And I'm like, what? So that was like that's why I film every show, because magic moments like that happen. And if I didn't film that clip would not have happened. And me putting that out, it got 1 million views on YouTube, but it got probably like 4 or 5 million across all of the news services that posted it, and TikTok and all these other social media platforms. And that clip coming out the day he died, because we pulled an all-nighter to edit it, that sold out my whole last week and boosted all my numbers and made a bunch of people go, fuck, I want to see him live. So filming every show, I think, is probably one of the best things that I've ever done.
Are there any other old monarchs? Because you could do a show called The Royal Flush and just work your way through the week.
Well, that's what I've kind of done with my bit. I've had to, because it was my favorite part of the show, and then I just couldn't do it anymore because I released it online and he was dead. So I've kind of rewritten it a little bit to be like, maybe I cursed him. So now every night, it's a bit of a spoiler, but I dedicate the show to Prince Andrew just to see if it'll work.
I do want to correct something, though. You said you fucking killed it. Well, I actually think you literally killed it, to be fair, on that. And
literally killed it.
Yes. And the other question is, what's your material building up for Queen Elizabeth II? You must be having a big section on her at the moment so that this can happen again in the not-too-distant future.
Well, a lot of people got conspiracy theoried in the thing and like, okay, obviously he didn't write it after he found out, but surely he knew he was going to die. To be honest, I was just trashing him because I thought he looked almost dead. I had no idea he was going to die. Like, everyone knew he was old. No one knew he was going to. But absolutely for sure, I am now writing that material about Queen Elizabeth. And when I put that out, just know, yes, I planned it this time. The first time was a fluke. The second time won't be.
You pulled an all-nighter to make sure this was edited, because I know now, you knew this was news content par excellence. That this was going, and it did, and it was worth that effort. It was worth not chowing into the beer after the show. Well, you might have done that as well, but just make sure that editing was done. This is the driven aspect of Lewis Spears, isn't it?
Well, that is a really key thing that I do. Like the work doesn't stop when you get off stage. Like, that's something that's really important. Like, radio doesn't work anymore. TV doesn't work anymore. The gala isn't going to make you a star. You got to do it yourself now. So part of that is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good you are on stage. You can be we've all seen people who are fucking incredible and nowhere at the same time. It's not enough. So you need to always be thinking, all right, how can I fucking tell people that I'm good, and how can I get people to my shows? And that's kind of what I did. So the Prince Phillip bit happened, and then I went to Keel and I said, man, we need to get that up tomorrow. So he stayed up all night editing it, and then he came over to my house in the morning it was half finished. He dropped it off, and then he went to sleep, and I finished the rest. So it was a really big, 12-hour edit that we split into 2 things. Because I knew it was going to bang, and then I uploaded it, and then I emailed the news services myself because I knew they would get on it. I just wanted to give them a heads up so they had the time. And sure enough, it worked. I was front page of Daily Mail calling me a monster, not knowing that they were doing my bidding.
That's great. By the way, on Keelan's point, though, isn't that a sackable offence not to see a job all the way through?
No, he works very hard. And when I saw his face in the morning dropping off the hard drive with the half-finished video, I knew he did a great job. And then he went... Because we had a show that night. That's why we had to split it up, because I knew we wouldn't get it done the day after, because we'd probably get it halfway finished and then we'd have to perform. So I had to perform, so I got him to pull the all-nighter, and then I just edited throughout the morning so he could go to sleep, and then we'd be all right.
Okay, I should have asked how cut he was first before I start laying into him, because I'm heading back to Rubber Chicken later this year and I don't want someone waiting in the shadows. Talking of shadows, darkness. You are the king of dark humour. You're one of the kings of dark humour. Let's say that, because we don't want you on the chopping block about to cuck it. You've got a huge following for that, but also you get a bit of hate. You get your dose of hate. Have you had any close calls where audience members got physical because you've just pushed their buttons too far?
I've only ever had to kick out one heckler in my life, and it was because of that. It was a woman who was incredibly angry. It was during a regional show. I can't remember the town, but she was just incredibly upset. One of those. Normally, I don't mind when people heckle because you can have a bit of a back and forth, and then if they kind of shut up, it adds to the show. But this was one of those really bad hecklers, and we had to boot her out of the show, and then she wouldn't leave, and security had to come, and then she was waiting for us in the car park, and that wasn't very scary, but I suppose it was physical. The only other one that I've had was I did a gig, and then I did a joke about orphans and World Vision and shit like that, like a pretty edgy joke, but one that I've been doing for years, and it's definitely funny, and it gets a good response every time I do it, pretty much. But there was sometimes there's just one guy, and there was one guy who was having a go at me and came up to me and kept yelling at me and goes, "Oh, I want to hit you, bro. I want to hit you." And I said, "Well, then I'm not going to talk to you anymore, because the last thing I needed is a fucking charge." So I disengage and I walk away, and he follows me, and he really wants to fight, but he's quite a small person. It was one of those things where you ever see a fight where the one, I'm 6'8" for context.
Oh,
this guy was about 5'4", so it was one of those where he wanted to fight, but he knew the end, if it started. So it was I want to fight, but his brain was like, dude, don't, what's going to happen. So it was just one of these things where he kept saying, I want to fight, and me going, I'm not going to fight you. I do not want to do that, because I'm not a violent guy. I've been around it a lot, but it's not really in me. I'm not interested. So that was funny. I think he ended up getting removed, and then he's, well, I'm waiting for you outside. I'm like, well, good luck, cunt, because I got to pack up all the gear. You're going to be waiting for hours. And nothing really happened. It's it is what it is. It's never really scared me. And to be honest, if someone hits me, hopefully it'll get filmed, and then I'll put it out on social media, sell some tickets.
Now that is the consummate professional. That is. That is everything for the art. That's fantastic. Oscar Wilde would be proud. On the dark side, though, and I know we're running long, but I've just got to ask you.
I don't mind. I got time.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we're here for the next 2 hours, everyone. Pull up a chair. What do you look for in a target?
Not that much time, but some.
No, wow. You do have boundaries. That's good to know. What do you look for in a target in your comedy? If you're going dark, I watched that video of you. What was that conference, the big one where you had the? I guess it was.
Yeah, it was a big Marxism.
Marxism.
Conference.
Yeah. So you're surrounded by these people. You made them walk 1 million blocks towards your car that wasn't there as they were trying to put. So you were clearly lampooning them. When do you start feeling sad for them and think they're no longer a target? What makes someone a target that you think is ripe for the taking in the realm of dark comedy?
To be honest, I don't like the term target because that implies a bit of maliciousness on my end, which I never try to do. Like I'll always try and catch myself where if I'm like, is this funny or am I doing this to be mean? And if it's always about my intention, and I think you need to be really honest with yourself about that, because you're going to know if you're making fun of this person or this group because you genuinely think it's a funny joke that will entertain people, or are you doing it to hurt their feelings? And I never want to do that. Obviously, sometimes there's collateral where that's unavoidable. So, like, it's a bit of a balance that you have to walk with your own self of, like, cool, if I do this, some people are going to get offended, but is that why I'm doing it? If it is, if you're doing it to offend, that's not funny. You're just being an asshole. If you're doing it to be funny and people get offended as a consequence, I'm willing to accept that because that's just the world. But with the... I will always, if I'm looking at making fun of people, I'll always think, can they take it, and if it's someone who's mentally unwell or unstable or someone who maybe I've made fun of before, I'll try to not do it again because I don't want to be a guy that just like picks one person or one group and just constantly has a go at them, because I think that can cross the line a little bit. But I think for the most part, anyone's fair game and any type of person is fair game as long as it's funny and your intention to make people laugh. So with that Marxism conference, I'm not like a right-wing type of person. I'm just down to make fun of anyone. And at the start of the video, I literally say that because there was Marxism conference, which is very left-wing, but then there were also Proud Boys that are super right-wing. So I'm like, perfect. I'm going to take the piss out of the Proud Boys. I'm going to take the piss out of the Marxist people. Great. And the video is great and I love it. And it's one of my best videos. And I think how it came out is incredible. But in the moment filming it, it was a disaster because that is not what we wanted to film. We wanted to go into the conference and have some banter and genuinely hear those people out. But as soon as they saw the camera, they started freaking out and acting like they did in the video. So in my head, the whole time, I'm like, this video is fucking ruined. We can't even get in. I can't talk to anyone. All of the jokes and little sketches that I had pre-written are out the door. So in the moment, that's all just improv. And it turned out to be much better than what I had planned for. But it wasn't like I went out there to target these lefties and these Marxists because I think they're wrong. It was genuinely just to have a little bit of fun. And if they let me do that, the video probably wouldn't have gone as well, and they probably would have won a few people over. The way they acted was in the moment terrible, but turned out great for me and awful for them.
It was actually fascinating. I listened to a podcast by Sam Harris. He does a great, thoughtful podcast in America, and one of the observations he's made came through clear there. He said, left wing to right wing, yes, it's a continuum, but it's not a straight line. It's a horseshoe. You find the people at both ends are so similar, just with different stripes on. And when they acted the way they did, it said to me, there's no confidence from their perspective in their argument. If they can't brook dissension and criticism, then there's a shallow, brittle enterprise that they're trying to defend for whatever reason, and that does the damage. So, and I love you acknowledging the intention. It all comes down to the intention. If Lewis Spears wasn't in the game yet, he was just in the fan status, what would you do differently? What might short circuit the process, as far as thinking of advice for other people?
I mean, I suppose there's because I do is the online thing and the stand-up thing, there's a link between them, but they're very different. I would say I would have loved to being told you're going to be shit and that's normal when you're starting out. Like, that's super, super normal. I knew that with stand-up. I didn't really know that with online content, but it's exactly the same. Like, the stuff that you make at the start is going to be bad. It's not going to be very good. There'll be some element that you like, but most of it you're not going to like, and most of it other people are not going to like. And that's so fucking normal, because you're new, and no one ever remembers the shitty videos. Like, I go on my channel, watch the first videos I ever uploaded. They are dog shit. They are awful. They're terrible. They're not very funny. There's some good ones, but for the most part, there's almost no redeeming characteristics of them.
They were in my next notes. I was going to give you a bit of feedback on those, but that's okay. You've done that now.
Okay, good. And that's normal, and you'll get through it. And then I think something that I really would have loved to be told that I fucked up several times is just be careful who you work with. Collaboration is awesome, but make sure the person you're working with is working as hard as you. Because if they're not working as hard as you, you're going to feel fucked and you're going to waste your time and they're going to hold you back. Or if they're working much more hard than you are, it's not properly collaborative. They're going to end up resenting you because maybe you're holding them back. I think careful who you spend your time with, and remember when the gig ends, the work doesn't, I think is something also that I think is really important, because you often see people getting into stand-up and it's at a bar, so they're like, I'll have a drink before or a drink after, and then all of a sudden they're fucking drinking 5 nights a week going, yeah, but I'm doing comedy. It's like, you're kind of just an alcoholic dude with a mic.
This got personal really quickly. Do you drink?
No, I don't. I never have.
Right. Okay.
But I don't judge people who do. I think I have a pretty good mindset of it. I don't mind people who do drink. It's just not for me.
I'll review this interview later. I am actually sipping on a South Australian Molly Duca Shiraz as we record this interview, just to keep my voice.
Mate, it's Friday night. Go for your life.
Thank you very much. There wasn't any patronism in that at all. Last 2 questions. Any gigs coming up around Australia?
Yeah, I'm going to be touring the country in August and September. I'll be doing all the major cities other than Melbourne. I'll probably do a few regionals. I'm really looking forward to it. Tickets will be on my website and my social media. I'll start yelling about it. But every major city and most regionals, it's going to be probably the biggest tour I've ever done. So I'm really, really looking forward to it.
And I just want to say thank you personally as an Adelaidean to think that we were counted when you said every major city. That was great. Thank you very much. I'll take that with me to the grave.
I love the balls, man. They're great.
And even the ones in our Arundel Mall. That's good. And I just
those two.
Should note for the record, June 18, it's just been confirmed, June 18, the Rubber Chicken in Melbourne, there's a dark comedy special. Matt O'Neill, Chris Wainhouse, and Lewis Spears. That is going to be like a black hole of dark comedy. It's going to. I wish I was over there. In fact, it might be a black hole. Yeah, everyone might be watching from home with their masks on. But I hope it all goes well. It sounds great.
Yes, hopefully. But yeah, Chris and Matt are some of my favorites. I love watching them. Everyone has the few comics that they really like. Yep. Will watch when they're on the same bill, and those two are mine. So having them performing with them at the same time, I'm looking forward to the show as a fan. You know, I get to do my set. Cool, that'll be fun. I just want to watch them work. It'll be great.
Okay, we're about to finish. I've got, just as an aside, 2 daughters aged 12 and 10. What's the perfect age for introducing them to dark humour, do you think?
I mean, I started watching it not too much longer after that. I think I was probably around, I might have been like 12, like the end of primary school was when I first started finding like South Park and like a bunch of other shows like that. My mum loved comedy. I was watching Little Britain when I was probably too young to do so.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I loved Chase's War and everything all through high school. So, man, it comes down to who you are, really. I don't think it's fucked me up too bad. I mean, I am lampooning recently deceased monarchs for money now, but, you know, better than doing it for free.
Look, as a closet Republican, I can only take my hat off to you. Lewis Spears, thank you for such a frank and, I think, valuable interview for all of us as we make our journey through this world of comedy and try to bring to it the professionalism that it demands and I think that the audience deserves. Lewis Spears, thanks.
No worries. Thank you very much. Had a lot of fun. Good luck, everybody. I hope that helps.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.